Hey guys, let's talk about this week's episode of Almost Human. And it was a good episode. We had some interesting stuff going on with Dorian in this episode. We know that he's starting to have these flashbacks or these memories, and it's of this kid playing with a toy. And it looks like he's in a bedroom, and it looks like it's a happy memory, but the thing is, Dorian isn't supposed to be having these memories. He's not supposed to have flashbacks. He is a computer, basically a synthetic, and he doesn't have any childhood memories because he never was a child. So the big question is, how do these memories get planted in his system? Was it from Dr. Nigel? Was it something that is a bug in his system that is always was going to come out and it's just now starting to happen? Very interesting question there. And now Kennex knows about it and he seems a little wary of it too. So he kind of has to keep his eye on Dorian because we don't know what this could trigger. And we want to make sure that, all is good with him. And in a couple episodes ago, we found out obviously that the DRNs could malfunction and they could turn, not really malfunction, but they could turn and be evil. And, Dorian was having a lot of questions as to whether that could someday be him. So, there's a lot of very interesting things going on with Dorian. We all know that one of the things that makes him almost human is that he sort of has like a soul. And when he was made by Nigel Vaughn, that was one of the things that he kind of embedded into him that made him different than the other synthetics. And, he's been struggling with that all season. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as we move forwards. Now, in this episode, it was, I believe the actual airing of this episode was the way it was intended. So I think we're on episode 11, and it was actually the 11th episode shot. But again, in this episode, we had no further mention of the wall. We had no further mention of Dr. Vaughn. We had no, mention of Kennex and what he was struggling with in last week's episode. So, sometimes this show just feels like it brings up some huge topics and then it just completely drops them. So, in this episode, it was really heavy on Dorian and, we want to know what's going on. And obviously, Rudy was probing away in his head and doing all these things at the beginning of the episode. And, when Dorian and him had a really great conversation where Dorian was like, listen, we're friends. You can tell me anything. And in that moment, Rudy was lying to him. And he was afraid to tell him like the truth that he really shouldn't have any of these memories. He doesn't really know. Or he knows that this was something that, like when... I think that he knows that there's obviously an issue with this and he just doesn't know how they got implanted into his memory system. So, the show likes to bring up all these major plot points, but then we just don't really get a continuation of them until like 3 or 4 episodes later. So I think there's only 2 episodes left of the season. It'll be interesting to see what storylines they decide to focus on in these last couple of episodes. I think there were some really funny moments between Kennex and Dorian in this episode. Again, with their relationship, it always works really well. But like I said in my last week's review, sometimes it feels disjointed because sometimes it feels like they're really good friends, like each other would die for one another. And then others, they're like bickering, like they just don't even really know each other and they're not really close friends. So with last week's episode, because it was technically the 4th episode that they shot, their relationship didn't seem as cemented. But in this episode, Kennex looks like he really cares about Dorian. He wants to tell him the truth and he wants to be honest with him. But Rudy's like, no, we can't tell him the truth and stuff like that. So, their relationship just is kind of like on this weird roller coaster ride, which is just odd. But, that's just the way the show decided to air its episodes this week, or this season, I should say. But we also had some funny stuff going on with Kennex and the other cop, who I can't remember his name, but the one who was absent, and he kept telling everybody that he had all these issues like that were going on, like personal issues that were going on with his body and stuff like that. And then when one of the officers gives, I guess, a collection of money that they pulled together, and they give it to the chief Maldonado, she's like, "What are you talking about? He went to visit like his mom somewhere." And it was just funny. So because Kennex is usually so serious and everything, and so it was funny to see him very lighthearted in this episode. And we actually got to hear his Australian accent, which was awesome. He was playing this undercover character, and they were trying to get into this huge like rave when we found out that it was actually just a bunch of people sitting in this room with like this like virtual mask on, and they were feeling like they were at a rave when they really actually weren't. So some funny stuff with them, some funny stuff with Rudy, of course, him acting like he's so cool and into all the cool scenes and everything that happen around, but really he's not. So episodes left, and we'll see how this show finishes out. I'm not sure if it's going to get picked up for second season. I wouldn't mind if it got picked up for second season, because I think that there's so much more that we can explore with this show. And hopefully when they do shoot the second season, they know exactly what they want to do from the beginning, and it won't seem so up and down. Okay, guys, I'll see you next week, and hope you have a good weekend.